Walters is back for another season as the official bar of the Nats Chat podcast. Walters is the best spot to go before and after home games, located at the southeast corner of Capitol and N Streets, right across the street from the ballpark.
At RX Bar, they believe in simple nutrition without the BS. That's why they said no to artificial ingredients and yes to deliver intentional, transparent nutrition. Try their original 12-gram protein bar, the nut butter and oat bar, or minis. RX Bar, the proud sponsor of No BS. Use code RXBAR on rxbar.com for 25% off. Subject to full terms and conditions and to change. Valid until September 30, 2025, and may not be combined with other offers. See rxbar.com for full details and limitations.
Adam straightens and sets at the belt. 2-2 to Abrams. Swing a high drive, deep right center field. Way back it goes, and this game is tied. C.J. Abrams stings his former team with a two-run shot. The Nationals 2, the Padres 2. Finnegan, the set at the letters. He kicks and he deals. Diaz squares. He bunts it toward the first baseman. It's a beauty. The run scores. Lowe's only play is to first in time for the out. And the Padres back in front 3-2. He fires. Swing a long drive left field. Way back it goes. And this is a grand slam into the Padres bullpen. 7-2 San Diego.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who was at Nationals Park. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. We are back from the MLB All-Star break. We hope that you had a nice All-Star break. The Nats on Friday on X put up a pretty funny post that they then actually apparently deleted. The post was a meme based on the astronomer CEO who got caught cheating on his wife at a Coldplay concert. And the theme of the post essentially was that the Nats pre-All-Star break portion of the season was very bad. Well, the Nats post-All-Star break portion of the season got off to a rough start. A 7-2 loss to the San Diego Padres at Nationals Park on Friday evening in Game 1 of a 3-game series. This in a game in which the Nats overcame a 2-0 8th-inning deficit by scoring 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th, but that allowed 5 runs in the top of the 9th. The Nats now, again, at a new low point in MLB's 2025 regular season at 21 games below 500, 38 and 59. But good to be with you. You can find us on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. And we have a website you could check out, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat podcast t-shirt. So we, prior to the Nats game on Friday evening, had a lot of Nats news. The highlights: A, reliever Derek Law needs to undergo season-ending surgery for a partial tear of the flexor tendon in his right elbow, so his season is over before it ever began. B, starting pitcher Trevor Williams, he on Thursday underwent an internal brace procedure to repair his partially torn UCL in his right elbow. His season is done. C, Brad Lord is back in the Nats rotation. D, the Nats are planning to officially sign their number 1 overall pick in the 2025 MLB draft, shortstop Eli Willits, prior to Saturday evening's game against the Padres. And E, as yes, there is an E, the Nats, per MLB insider John Heyman of the New York Post, are signing their 4th-round pick in the draft, New York high school pitcher Miguel Sime Jr., for $2 million, well above the MLB slot value for that pick, $687,800. A lot to take in. Mark, we have a lot of ground to cover off a wild last few innings on Friday evening at Nationals Park.
Well, the good news, Al, is that we had all that pregame news, and there's a lot for us to get to on that. But we also had a game to open the second half of the season that really showed how much has changed for the Nationals from the first half to the second half. No, wait, I'm sorry. This was the exact same game. Maybe some of the particulars were a little bit different, but this was exactly what we saw from them so many times in the first half. They didn't hit for most of the night against the opposing starter, but they managed to keep themselves in it. They actually did come back and tie the game. It was a very winnable game. And then it completely blew up on them as a product of bad fundamentals, especially bad base running, and then a reliever turning an inning into just a complete mess. And all of a sudden, a winnable game had turned into a blowout loss. How many times have we discussed that kind of ball game this year? Way too often. And to see it happen again, coming right out of the chute in the first game back from the All-Star break, boy, was that a tough one to swallow. I understand. We know where this season is going. We know what is salvageable or not at this point. But to see them play that exact same kind of game again, oof, that was tough.
We are 97 games into the Nats' 162-game regular season schedule. Yes, we are rather deep into the season, but there still is a good bit of season left. There is a lot of baseball left to be played. If this is the kind of baseball that we're all going to be digesting for the next 2+ months, God bless us all. We shall see. Yeah, this was rough. So the base running blunders drove you nuts. We'll get to those. The Nats, though, did forge a comeback in this game, down 2-0, bottom of the 8th. C.J. Abrams, a big home run. Abrams in this game as the Nats starting shortstop and number 1 batter, 1 for 4 with a game-tying 2-run homer. He and the Nats 2-run 8th had a 1-out 2-run homer to right center field to tie the game at 2, despite having been down at 1.02. The homer going a projected 428 feet per Statcast. There was more to that inning. We'll get to that. But Kyle Finnegan completely unraveled in the top of the 9th. 5 runs in a third of an inning. He gave up a leadoff first pitch opposite field single by Jay Cronenworth through the left side of the infield. Finnegan then gave up an ultra-weak opposite field single by Jose Iglesias at a ball that just barely got beyond the infield dirt, so some bad luck there for Finnegan. He then gave up an RBI sac bunt by Elias Diaz for a 3-2 Padres lead. Finnegan then gave up a 1-out single by Fernando Tatis Jr. into left field on a 1-2 pitch. And this is when you really started to say to yourself, oh boy, he's in trouble. Tatis then stole second base. Finnegan then issued a 1-out 5-pitch walk of Luis Ariz to load the bases. And Finnegan then gave up a 1-out grand slam by Manny Machado to left field on a 1-2 pitch for a 7-2 Padres lead. And Finnegan then was pulled from the game, was pulled in favor of Jackson Rutledge. That was rough to watch. Kyle Finnegan just could not get outs in that 9th inning.
No, and yes, the inning started with that kind of fluky small ball stuff from the Padres. But, oh, by the way, the Padres, who did execute excellent fundamental baseball throughout this game, the first 3 runs they scored in this game all came on sacrifices. They did not have a hit to drive in a run and still were in a position to take the lead and be up 3-2 at that point. So it starts off with that kind of stuff. But the fact that Finnegan then turned that into a 5-run inning, gave up an easy stolen base. This has always been a problem with him. Walks Luis Ariz, one of the hardest hitters in baseball to walk. He's only drawn 19 of them this season. This is a free swinger, if ever there was one. An excellent hitter, but a free swinger. And then you load the bases for Manny Machado, and you have a hunch what's going to come next. It would be one thing if this was in a vacuum, and this was the first time we'd seen this. Kyle Finnegan is in a sustained rut right now. I know he hasn't pitched a lot. He actually doesn't have a save since June 6th. Now, that's a product of the team losing so many games. But the handful of opportunities he has had, either in a save situation like he had in Milwaukee last weekend, or in a close game where he's trying to keep it close, he has not been getting the job done. And this is very reminiscent of what we saw from him leading into the trade deadline last year. It's reminiscent of what we've seen from him in the past. When he goes south, it can go south for a while. Now, he knows it. He keeps saying, I've got to get right back out there, correct this, get back on the horse, and do not let this stretch define my season. But I'll tell you what, he's now here on July 18th, got an ERA north of 4, doesn't have a save since June 6th. If the whole idea of these next 2 weeks is to make sure you get as much as you can for Kyle Finnegan at the trade deadline, he is not helping the cause there at all.
No, he's not. 4.37 ERA. The whip is at 1.31. You know, he's only 18 for 24 on saves. He has 6 blown saves. This overall has not been a good season for him, even though at times he has looked good and he's had stretches during which he has looked good. You know, those bottom line numbers are not good. And that was really ugly what went down in this game. Now, it was an interesting game from a bullpen perspective. Miguel Cairo, I don't know if he realizes that there are many more games to come post the All-Star break. He used 7 relievers relievers in this game. You would have thought this was Game 7 of the 2019 World Series with the way that Miguel Cairo was maneuvering with his bullpen. And the truth is, the bullpen beyond Finnegan actually wasn't bad. So I don't know why Cairo felt this need to be, using so many relievers in this game. 7 Nats relievers got utilized in this game, combined to allow 6 runs in 4 innings. But like I said, beyond Finnegan, the bullpen really wasn't that bad. Mason Thompson tossed 2/3 of a scoreless inning, top of the 6th, faced 3 batters, got 2 outs. Andrew Chafin got a big out. He only faced 1 batter, but top of the 6th, generated a swinging strikeout of the Padres' number 5 batter, Jackson Merrill, with a runner on first, 2 outs, and the Nats down 1-0. Jose A. Ferrer did officially allow a run in a third of an inning. He and a Padres 1-run 7th, faced 3 batters, but got just 1 out. We had some bad defense by the Nats in this inning. Ferrer gave up a leadoff opposite field double by Xander Bogaerts on a lazy fly ball to no man's land and shallow right on a 1-2 pitch. And right fielder Dalen Lyle on the play made a really bad throw to second base. And Ferrer then gave up a first pitch bunt single by Jake Cronenworth on a play on which catcher Riley Adams ran into Ferrer. Luis Garcia officially tossed 2/3 of a scoreless inning. He, to the first batter he faced, did allow an inherited runner to score, this on an RBI sac bunt by Elias Diaz for a 2-0 Padres lead, that in the top of the 7th. Cole Henry, though, scoreless top of the 8th, despite giving up a leadoff single and issuing a 2-out hit by pitch. And Jackson Rutledge, in relief of Kyle Finnegan, top of the 9th, faced 3 batters, got 2 outs. Why do you think Cairo saw fit to use so many relievers in this game?
I mean, he used 4 relievers to face 9 batters during a 2-inning stretch from the 6th to the 7th inning in what was a 2-0 game. Actually, it was a 1-0 game and became a 2-0 game. It felt, as you said, like a playoff game the way he was managing that. Now, look, he's playing the matchups. He was using the 3-batter minimum absolutely to a minimum, and in some cases pulling a guy before that because the inning was over. He went all in on this one, and it sort of worked to put him in a position. I think he felt like a game in which they weren't hitting. If he could just keep it close, go for it, and hope the offense would come through. And I mean, it did, and they were in a position to win it late as a result of all that. The only move I didn't love there from him, he brings in Andrew Chafin to face Jackson Merrill in the 6th. He gets the strikeout on 5 pitches, I think it was. Now, the next inning, the 7th, still 1-0 game. And the Padres have 2 of their first 3 hitters due up are lefties. So you figure we'll just keep Chafin in. And instead, he brings in Jose A. Ferrer, the other lefty he has in the bullpen, doubling up on the lefties with Chafin only facing the 1 batter. Now, Ferrer kind of struggled there. A leadoff double, a mess of a little dribbler in front of the plate between him and Riley Adams. And next thing you know, they score the tack-on run. That was the only part I didn't love. But I guess you're saying, hey, everybody's fresh, everybody's available. This is a winnable game. We got to try to keep it as close as possible. And it worked. Now, the problem is who's left for Saturday and Sunday and beyond. The good news is that those 4 guys I was just talking about, Thompson, Chafin, Ferrer, Garcia, they all threw 15 or fewer pitches. Chafin, Ferrer, and Garcia didn't even get to 10 pitches apiece. So they should be fine the next day. It did feel like an all-in attempt when maybe that was a little bit unexpected and maybe not the kind of situation you would call for that. But you can't fault the results necessarily because it did work. They were in a position to win the game in part because of that.
They were. The Nats have an off day coming up on Thursday, but do have games Saturday through Wednesday. One more thing on Finnegan, by the way. While you were talking, I remember this. His struggles in that top of the 9th came with the Padres' number 7 through 9 spots in the lineup to begin that inning. So it's not like he got thrust into facing the heart of the Padres order. Spots 7 through 9 to begin the top of the 9th, and Finnegan unraveled in that inning. That made that inning even worse, when you consider who Finnegan faced to begin his work in that inning.
Right, and I feel like, not necessarily with him, but with all these guys in the bullpen, this has been a common theme. Inability to get the bottom guys in the order out, and that then turns it into these blow-up innings that fall apart, and this certainly was a case of that. Walter's Sports Bar has been recognized by many local publications as one of the best sports bars in Washington, D.C., located across the street from Nationals Park and open year-round.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Filtrete brand air filters help capture unwanted particles in your indoor air, like dust, pet dander, bacteria, and viruses, and have similar airflow across all MERV and MPR levels. Now available in more dimensions and sizes.
Rise is going to play behind Bell. Josh will be off with the pitch. Wood a big lead from third with Machado playing off the line. There goes Bell already. Now Peralta steps off and then throws to second. Bell's in a rundown, and they're going to tag him out. Oh, my goodness. Bell went way too soon. Peralta just throws the ball to the shortstop, Bogarts. He runs Bell down, who couldn't stay in the rundown long enough for Wood to score. And that's how the inning comes to a close.
So the Nats offense in this 7-2 loss to the Padres on Friday evening, not good, just 2 runs. The Nats did have 9 hits, but 8 of them were singles to go with the C.J. Abrams homer. The Nats worked just 1 walk. The Nats struck out 13 times, went 1 for 4 with runners in scoring position. Padres starting pitcher Dylan Cease had his way with the Nats, 5 1/3 scoreless innings, 10 strikeouts, no walks. We mentioned what C.J. Abrams did, and that was great. Now let us get to what Josh Bell did, especially on the base paths. So Bell, as the Nats starting DH and number 4 batter, went 2 for 3 with 2 singles and a hit by pitch. But he had not 1 but 2 base running blunders. Bottom of the 7th, Bell drew a leadoff first pitch hit by pitch, but he was thrown out by Padres right fielder Fernando Tatis Jr. in attempting to tag up from second base to third base on a double play for the first 2 outs. And then Bell, with the game tied at 2 in the bottom of the 8th, had a 2-out infield single on a 1-2 pitch on a ball that went off Padres reliever Jason Adam. But Bell, with runners at the corners and Nathaniel Lowe batting, was tagged out in a rundown between first and second base in a failed attempted steal of second base for the 3rd out. We have seen plenty of Nats base running blunders in recent years. That has to be one of the worst that we have witnessed, considering the spot, considering the player, and considering that was his 2nd base running blunder of this game.
We haven't used the term toot playing in a while around here. This would certainly qualify, although nincompoop might be not even strong enough of a word for how Josh Bell must have felt in that moment. Let's run through this, and there's an important point to bring up here at the start, which I don't know if everyone realized at the time, myself included. This was a designed play. Runners on first and third and 2 out. They called for Josh Bell to take off from first towards second, not with the intent of stealing the base, but with the intent of getting into a rundown to buy enough time for James Wood to score the tying run from third. That's the philosophy behind it. The execution of it was awful, and it starts with Bell, but some of this apparently also needs to go on James Wood, who didn't read it properly, needed to break for the plate right away and didn't. Now, maybe he didn't feel it, didn't see that he had the chance. And when the pitcher, Peralta, still has the ball in his hand, maybe he's afraid to go for the plate, thinking that he's just going to get thrown out at the plate. So it starts there. In Bell's case, I think it caught him off guard that Peralta didn't move at first, and nobody is covering second. And so actually, in hindsight, if he had just kept running to second, he probably would have been safe. But as Bell said, that wasn't the design of the play. You're not supposed to try to steal second. You're supposed to get into a rundown. And so the problem is he made it too far down the line before anything happened. The intent should be stop halfway, even if the pitcher still has the ball, force him to come after you, and then maybe that buys enough time for Wood to score. Obviously, it didn't come close to working right. I think there's a valid argument here, though, to be made. Is that the kind of play you want to run with Josh Bell as your base runner? That's a play that has to be executed very well, and I just don't know that he is the proper guy to make that happen, especially with 2 outs in a 1-run game. You can pinch run for him there and have somebody who's a little more adept at doing that there, or even just try to steal second with a better base runner and create something that way. The fact that it was Bell, I think, really stands out as you're basically saying, if you're Miguel Cairo, I don't trust Nathaniel Lowe to get a hit here. Our only chance to score this run is through trickery and catching the Padres off guard and trying to steal home off of them. If it works, it's fantastic, but I just don't know that was the right guy to try to do that with.
No, and not that RBI means a ton to me personally, but Nathaniel Lowe's been one of your better RBI guys this season. So he's in an RBI spot. Let him swing and do his thing and see what happens. I don't understand that at all from Miguel Cairo's perspective doing that. But man, Bell making those outs like that, he's not the guy who should be making outs like that on the base pass. I mean, you're watching this game, you wanted to scream. It was bad enough what happened in the bottom of the 7th, and then to see what happened in the bottom of the 8th, just crazy. Now, with James Wood, so he is the Nats starting left fielder, number 2 batter, 0 for 3 with a walk and a stolen base. He struck out 3 more times. Look, I don't want him to change how he hits because he's hitting so well overall. But man, he is striking out a ton. Like, this is very much a thing with him. You're looking at now 119 strikeouts in 424 plate appearances. Now, give him full credit for his defense, which from a metrics perspective has been good. I think better than people might realize, because initially he looked awkward in left field. The defensive metrics actually say he's having a good defensive season. And in this game, he made a nice play. Top of the 5th, diving backhanded catch on a fly ball by Xander Bogaerts for a leadoff full count flyout. But the strikeouts, should we be troubled by them? Or do you say, listen, this is part of the Josh Bell package right now. Take the 900 plus OPS and be quiet. Don't complain about what else may be coming with that.
Well, I think in the bigger picture, no, I'm not that worried. He's probably a guy who's just going to strike out a lot, and you sacrifice that for the home runs and everything else. And he does draw walks. It's not like, he's not getting on base enough. He has a good eye at the plate, maybe too good of an eye, and that leads to some of the strikeouts looking. I think the bigger issue is right now, and it goes back to about a week before the break or so and extended into this one, is that he is, by James Wood standards, in a little bit of a slump right now. It includes a lot of strikeouts, but just includes not a lot of hits or real production from him. He hasn't quite looked like himself. Now, it's too short of a period to draw any real conclusions. He had one of these earlier in the year, and it lasted about a week, and then he got out of it right away. So let's give it some time and see if this goes on like this, or if he figures it out and gets back to being James Wood again. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I know there are going to be people who say, well, see, the home run derby, it screwed him up. Well, he was already kind of struggling before the home run derby. This was going on, like I said, about a week, 10 days prior to the All-Star break. But he does need to get it back, and it does remind you. And I know that Abrams' home run kind of salvaged a lot, but up to that point, they did nothing offensively. When James Wood is not hitting for you, this lineup does not have enough else to get the job done. They desperately need him to be a part of it. And so, yeah, it's all about him individually, but like as a team, they need him as well. So you hope this doesn't last too much longer. He's going to strike out. I think that's just kind of who he is. Maybe over time, as he gets, more experience, he'll get a little better at it. You can live with the strikeouts if he's producing the way that he normally does, but the last week or so, he hasn't produced the way that he normally does.
Another bright spot for the Nats in this game beyond C.J. Abrams was the Nats starting pitcher, Michael Soroka. He in this game, 1 run, 5 innings. He gave up just 3 hits, all of which were singles, issued 2 walks, recorded 3 strikeouts, 85 pitches, 50 strikes, 35 balls. In an ideal world, he continues to pitch well, and the Nats can get something decent for him come that trade deadline. As we've talked about, the run prevention overall has not been good, but it was good in this game. So if he can stack a few more of these, maybe the Nats can parlay Mr. Soroka into something decent come July 31st.
Well, the interesting thing here is that Soroka really didn't have his best stuff in this game. We've seen games where he looked a lot better and didn't necessarily have the best kind of results because he'd give up that home run late or things would fall apart for him in one inning. Didn't have the best stuff. The velocity was down to like 90 to 92 with his fastball, but he was effective with it. And he actually kind of took some encouragement out of that because this is the way he used to pitch before coming back from all his injuries, where his velocity ticked back up again. So he was encouraged at the fact that even when he didn't have his best stuff, he was executing pretty well and able to minimize the damage. The 1 run they scored, a couple of singles and a sacrifice fly. Again, the Padres, until the grand slam, did not drive in a run with a hit. It was all sacrifices up to that point. The key thing for Soroka here, and we've seen this, kind of make or break point in the game, he gets to the 5th, He's got 2 outs. He's facing the bottom of the lineup. Here we go again with this. Back-to-back walks of the 8th and 9th hitters. And now the bullpen's up. The pitching coach comes to the mound. Is it all going to fall apart here? He's got to face Fernando Tatis. What does he do? First pitch gets him to pop up to the catcher. That's that. And then with a pitch count of 85, Miguel Cairo said, nope, that's enough. You're done. 5 innings, 1 run. Congrats. Thanks for keeping us in this game. That's kind of who he is. Even at his best, that's probably who he is going to have to be. Now, if you're a contending team interested in Michael Soroka, you have to go into it knowing that. You probably can't count on him for being effective more than 80 to 85 pitches. But if he can show that he can do that and get through 5 and minimize the damage, then yeah, there may be a market for him here in the next 2 weeks.
Hey Nats fans, you know me as Tim Newmark, the guy who wrote the Nats Chat theme song. You may not know that 2025 is the 10th anniversary of the release of my personal favorite album, Galaxy. Check it out on your favorite streaming platforms today.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths, and sometimes heights, to ensure the power is always flowing. Which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Filtrete brand air filters help capture unwanted particles in your indoor air, like dust, pet dander, bacteria, and viruses, and have similar airflow across all MERV and NPR levels. Now available in more dimensions and sizes.
The 2-1, ground ball up the middle, behind second, fielded by Bogarts. He races to the bag, he steps on second, throws to first, and this one is over. Dalen Lyle grounds into the double play. The Padres take game 1 of the series 7-2.
Game 2 for the Nats against the Padres Saturday evening, 6:45. Mitchell Parker will be the Nats starting pitcher. Regarding the avalanche of pregame news regarding the Nats, so we'll just hit on some of the highlights here. When it comes to Brad Lord being back in the Nats rotation, so I'm happy about this. This is good. I'm more interested in seeing him than Shinnosuke Ogasawara. Ogasawara was optioned back to AAA Rochester last Saturday night, July 12th, off his 2 disappointing MLB starts. But it's impossible to receive this news and not think about Cade Cavalli and not say to yourself, if not now, when? And is this not another indictment of where this guy is at in his career? A 2020 first-round pick who, due to injury, but also due to underperformance, still is not part of this Nats major league rotation this season.
Let's be clear. There are no other reasons at this point besides performance keeping Cade Cavalli at AAA. There's no health issue, as far as we know. There's no service time issue. They've passed that point where there'd be a question about that. They're in the clear if they wanted to call him up. This is entirely about performance, and the Nationals, as an organization, not believing that he is their best option or that he is ready to pitch in the big leagues again. And that is a troubling thought. Now, he's been up and down at AAA. There have been some good starts. The last one was pretty good. I know some people there kind of felt like that might have been his last one. It was set up for him now to come up coming out of the All-Star break. Well, that's not happening yet. He's scheduled to pitch for Rochester on Saturday. Now, we just talked about Soroka. If they do trade him at the deadline, that opens up another spot in a couple weeks. So maybe that's the opening for Cavalli. But right now, the Nationals are essentially saying he hasn't earned the right to pitch in the big leagues. And that's a little bit concerning, both because of who he's supposed to be and what their other options are right now. I agree that it's good to get a chance to really see Brad Lord in the rotation and see what he can do. I'm a little surprised by it just because this idea of bouncing him back and forth, and now, he's not built up. He's only going to be able to throw 45, 50 pitches in his first start. And we're going to go through this whole thing again where it's going to take him 3, 4, 5 starts to even get to a point that he's like a real starting pitcher again, but they seem committed to that. So I get that. I understand that. And not to say he's not worthy of it, but I also look at this. He's one of the only effective, consistently relievers they have right now. You're maybe better off in the rotation with him, but your bullpen is going to suffer dramatically, I think, from not having him. Now, I don't know in the long run what he's going to be, but I almost felt like this was a case where he's more valuable right now as a setup man, effective reliever than he is as a fifth starter. We'll see how it all plays out. I was a little surprised by the move for that reason, just because I don't know, they have enough bullpen depth to move him out of the bullpen right now.
They don't, but I don't know that he himself is going to make things that much better, even with him pitching well. And, their rotation is not in a very good place. Beyond Mackenzie Gore, you have a bunch of fat ERAs in this rotation. We've talked about that. I mean, we can highlight encouraging outings for Jake Irvin, Mitchell Parker, etc. The overall body of work for each guy is not good. And we know about Trevor Williams' wretched season, and he's now done for the season with his internal brace procedure. But Shinnosuke Ogasawara did not look good. So the rotation could use someone else beyond Gore who you can look at and say he's doing a decent job. Lord not only did a decent job when he was starting, he was getting progressively better. He should have never been removed from the rotation, especially now given the benefit of hindsight. He should have remained in that rotation. So we'll see. I mean, I think we have to understand what we're dealing with here in terms of the upside. But I think it's absolutely worth doing. And, I have genuine interest in seeing how he does. But man, the Cade Cavalli thing, it's impossible to escape that with this decision, that it's not Cavalli being inserted into the rotation. And when you talk about Nats failed first-round picks, that run of 4 consecutive first-round picks spent on starting pitchers, 2017 Seth Romero, 2018 Mason Denneberg, 2019 Jackson Rutledge, 2020 Cade Cavalli. Right now, you have to say those are 4 whiffs. I mean, right now, with Cade Cavalli, I don't know how you frame it any other way. Now, hopefully he changes that, but how do you view this any way other than he's a bust at this point, with him not being rotation ready at this point, this removed from when he was drafted?
Yeah, there's no body of work to go off of with him. We have one big league start, and it wasn't a good one. And then now, 2 years of recovery from Tommy John surgery, and even once healthy, he has not pitched well enough in the minor leagues to make it a slam dunk that he should be in the big leagues. Now, again, we may be a couple weeks away if they do trade Soroka. Maybe that opens the door, because I don't know who else there is at this point for them to call up. But it's a pretty big indictment. And certainly the first 2 of those 4 you mentioned, Romero and Denneberg, are absolute busts. They're out of baseball. Now, Rutledge is pitching in the bullpen, but not pitching well. He's the mop-up man on this staff right now, so he's pretty close to that status. There's still time for Cavalli, but I feel like we've been talking about this for years now of what he could be and waiting to see it. And I think really for the first time since he was drafted, you can say that there is no reason other than performance holding him back. There's no injury. There's no he's too young. He's not ready. We need to give him more seasoning. It's not that. He needs to go out and actually pitch well and pitch well on a regular basis before they're going to make this move. It's hard to accept from you thought that maybe starting with that draft class, 2020, that was going to be the turning point. Things got better. Brady House in 21, Elijah Green not so much in 22, but Dylan Cruz in 23. We'll see. But at the moment, it doesn't look like we're going to be talking about 2020 as the year that things did finally start to turn better for them from a draft standpoint.
Well, let's end on a positive note. So we now have appropriate context on what the Nats did in the 2025 MLB draft, in which, of course, they took shortstop Eli Willits with the #1 overall pick. And there was the question of, did the Nats go cheap in taking Willits because he's expected to sign for below slot value, and the Nats on Saturday are expected to officially sign Willits? Or was this part of a very viable and I think very appropriate draft strategy of you go under slot in round 1 in order to go over slot in multiple later rounds? Well, since we last spoke on this podcast, we have what the Nats did in the rest of the 2025 MLB draft. The Nats, over rounds 3 through 5 in the draft, took players who seemingly would cost more than their slotted positions. Mississippi High School starting pitcher Landon Harmon in the 3rd round, New York High School pitcher Miguel Sema Jr. in the 4th round, and North Carolina High School shortstop Coy James in the 5th round. The Nats in this draft wound up with 5 of MLB Pipeline's top 100 prospects in the draft. And I think it's important to highlight, it's not like the Nats had, say, multiple first-round picks. When you have that, you can maybe wind up with, 3-4 guys in an MLB pipeline top 100. The Nats had one pick in each of the first 5 rounds and wound up with 5 of MLB Pipeline's top 100 prospects. And off this report from John Heyman on Friday that the Nats are signing Sime for a lot more money than his slot value, $2 million versus the slot value of $687,800. I have to tell you, I really like what the Nats did here. You get 5 of the top 100 guys in a draft. That's a good job. Now, obviously, we have to see how these guys pan out, understandably so. But from a process standpoint, I don't know how you don't like what the Nats did here.
It's going to be years, maybe a decade until we actually know with these high school players whether this was the right way to go about it. But what I do like is that it's pretty clear that they went into it with a particular plan and then went and executed that plan. And it's maybe not the kind of thing they would have done in the past, although they did. Travis Sikora was kind of a similar situation as a 3rd-round pick that they overpaid to keep him from going to college, and now he's their top pitching prospect. So it's not like this had never happened under Mike Rizzo, but it definitely struck me. And I think we talked about it the day that Mike DiBartolo met us for the first time. He brought up in passing this notion of allocating your draft pool in a strategic way. And so, yes, even though you had the number 1 overall pick, in a year where maybe there was not a clear number 1 guy, you take the guy that you still like. Let's be clear. They like Eli Willits. This was not a lesser player in their mind that they were drafting. But they knew, all things being equal, he would probably cost less than the other 2 and could sign for a below slot value. Now, I don't have the number yet on him. Hopefully by Saturday, we'll get that. The slot value for the number 1 pick is a little over $11 million. Let's say he signs for something less than that, whether it's in the $9 to $10 million range. The way this works, for those who don't understand, they have a total draft pool of almost $6 million that can be spread out among all their picks. So when you spend less on your first rounder, you can apply that money to later round picks. This is not a case of they're going cheap on the first round pick because they're not going to ultimately spend the money. No, they are going to spend that total amount of money. It's the way you disperse that money over multiple rounds. So to now know that they're doing that with Miguel Sime, their 4th round pick, they haven't announced any kind of signing with Landon Harmon yet, but he told us in his Zoom call with us that he will be signing and not going to college. So I think he knows that he's coming and probably accepting a larger deal than what his slot value would be. So there is a distinct strategy to what they're doing here. You hope it works out in the end. But I think as much as we've talked about their 1st-round picks who haven't panned out over the years, we have to point out that their 2nd and 3rd and 4th-round picks have not worked out either. And if you really want to run a successful baseball operation that can sustain success year after year, it's not just about drafting future superstars at the top of the draft. It's about drafting quality big leaguers across the board in the later rounds. They have positioned themselves to get guys who could become that. Now it's up to them to actually turn them into quality big leaguers.
Those high school guys who they took rounds 3 through 5, big time upside. So, like we said, we'll see if they hit, but I think it makes total sense the way the Nats approach this. And when it comes to Mike DiBartolo potentially becoming the Nats' full-time head of baseball operations, as we've noted, we're not going to know how he did in this draft for a long time, but what you can do is judge the process, and the process appears to have been quite sound. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. Hit us up on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. On Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, can both rate the podcast and write reviews. 5-star ratings are very much appreciated. Positive reviews are very much appreciated. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
With the first pick of the 2025 MLB Draft, the Washington Nationals select Eli Willits, a shortstop from Fort Cobb Broxton High School in Fort Cobb, Oklahoma.
Want to get paid to listen to podcasts? At Pilot Podcasts, We connect podcasters and brands with real listeners like you before they launch their shows. It's easy. Sign up for free. Listen to podcasts before they go live and get paid for sharing your feedback. Your insights help make podcasts better, and you get rewarded for your time. Visit pilotpodcast.com/register today to sign up. That's PILOT podcasts.com/register. Pilot Podcasts. Get paid to shape the next big podcast.